Welcome to Your American Heritage with your host, Ed Bonderenka. Our goal is to provide a platform for a discussion of pro-life, pro-Christian, and pro-American constitutional principles in the light of current and historical events. America, bless God.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to Your American Heritage, where we talk about the two things you're not supposed to, religion and politics. My name is Ed Bonderenka, and I'm
not your normal fluffy insurrectionist.
I'll have to get Sean on that to speed that up a little bit next time. So I'll be your host today. My pronouns are sir and yes, sir. The tower tells me we are clear for takeoff. Tower, do you copy?
Stand by for departure. I am given clearance for takeoff to the Delta.
Please fasten your seatbelts and stow any left-wing philosophy in the trash bin of history. Thank you. So the show is produced by Derek Stone, the hardest working man in radio. He's also the host of Stone Cold Sports, which is at Sundays at noon 30, right after my friend Sean Todd, the Rock and Rev, on the intersection at noon. Sean, it's
not your normal fluffy Christian show.
Yeah. I also recommend you listen to the podcasts of previous shows if you didn't hear them or just want to know what everyone is talking about. So go to Spotify or Google Podcasts and search Your American Heritage and subscribe, or go to whamradio.com and click on the podcast tab. That's why we put it there. Share them with your friends. They'll appreciate it. Let's open in prayer. Father, this nation needs your help. Please deliver this nation from the evil that besets it, from basically a regime that is seeking to oppress your people, an administration that seeded itself through corruption and fraud, an administration that seeks to debase this nation, founded on principles found in your word, an administration bent on enslaving those who you have set free. So please deliver us from the corrupt and power-mad Whitmer administration also, and please open the eyes of understanding of the population, of the populace of Michigan and the nation to those principles in your word. Will you please lead us and guide us into righteousness and wisdom? Give us the courage and strength to do what needs to be done, and also lead us in our discussion today. In Jesus' name, amen. It's day 157 of the coup. There is a pretender in the White House. Control of the Senate has been stolen, and there are powers that are using all this to overthrow the Constitution and implement their dominion over us. The Great Reset is not their goal, it is their plan. Their goal is to enslave you and make you like it, to gather more power to themselves. Your job, our job, is to resist and to support each other and to push back their agenda, to encourage each other. That's part of what this show is about, is encouragement, folks, to look back at our heritage and see what we can do to maintain and restore. Pride Month, speaking of our heritage, Pride Month is coming to an end. Hallelujah. But the celebration of Independence Day is next weekend, the true American holiday. And you know what our president had to say?
If we do our part, if we do this together, by July the 4th, there's a good chance you, your families and friends will be able to get together in your backyard or in your neighborhood and have a cookout and a barbecue and celebrate Independence Day.
Despite what he says, do what you want, okay? All right? The guy is an illegitimate poser. He's not the president of the United States. So, I mean, now you're going to have to do what you want to do about that. But I'd go ahead and I'd have a big 4th of July bash with everybody I wanted to, and carry on, celebrate the founding of this nation. You know, it really wasn't the start of the Revolutionary War. That started a year earlier at Lexington, and that's something we got to remember. We didn't just start the battle on July 4th. So how was the legitimate president of the United States removed from office? And how did the Biden administration rise to power? How could an incumbent president be unseated? Remember, incumbents always have the advantage unless they suck at their job. And the economy is usually the measure of the probability of reelection. President Donald J. Trump had a booming economy. Gas prices were low. My cousin sent me a picture a couple days ago of last year when gas was at 98 cents a gallon in Southgate. Okay? Work was returning to this country. China's threat to us was being challenged. We were at peace. North Korea was no longer threatening war, launching missiles at Hawaii. The Middle East was standing in line to sign the Abrahamic Accords, the Middle East peace treaties that John Kerry said could never happen. Remember that?
There will be no separate peace between Israel and the Arab world. I want to make that very clear to all of you.
What a moron. All this, and he is now our climate change czar? Like, is that a constitutional position? All this, all these attacks, all these things that Trump accomplished, all these accomplishments, despite a relentless attack by the left on Trump. You know all this. You were there. I mean, this is not ancient history. You were there on election night where Trump was ahead when you went to bed. And we've had people on this show that saw the election fraud with their own eyes or part of the investigation of it. People like Pat Colbeck and Matt Briggs. How did it come to this? First, there had to be something that would bring this country to a halt, something that would shake faith in the leadership of the country. Of course, the repeated attempts at impeachment were a part of that process, and that wasn't working. But to some extent, it did work. Part of the goal was to delegitimize the duly elected administration of Donald Trump, to remove some of the shine. Then there had to be a reason to change the way we hold elections. There needed to be a motive to do this, and that came in the form of a virus that, surprise, came from a laboratory in communist China whose purpose was to weaponize viruses, which is euphemistically called gain of function. You know what that meant? Well, the function is to make you sick. The gain is to make you sicker. So all of this was funded by Fauci, the guy who was supposed to get us through the crisis. And turns out he's an ally of China, the people who gave us the Chai-Vai. And remember, and I'm sure you do, China was and is the biggest threat to the United States, not white extremists. Communist China and its economy was the geopolitical entity most threatened by the policies of Donald J. Trump. Remember the posturing of Congressman Eric Swalwell that President Donald Trump was an agent of Russia? If there was concern with Trump being influenced by Russia, which, that was totally debunked. That went nowhere, the Mueller investigation, all that. Well, why did the media protest about, Swalwell's, the agent in Swalwell's office and his bedroom, and, Dianne Feinstein, her Chinese spy and chauffeur of 20 years? And why did Pelosi still support Swalwell and his position on the Sensitive Intelligence Committee? Why? I don't know. Now we come to the election, which was demonstrably twisted from any resemblance to a constitutional election. Sure, we still had the Electoral College. That hasn't been removed yet. But so many electoral processes were distorted in unconstitutional manners that many states by any right should never have had their votes certified. You know this. I'm just recapping. State legislators are supposed to determine the process by which a state selects its electors to the college. Tim Kreider, author of the Electoral College for Patriots, has been on this show to explain it to us. And instead, governors and secretaries of state usurped power to themselves. That's a good word, usurped power to themselves to dictate how the elections will be twisted due to the Chai-Vai menace. Twisted to allow the fraudulent voting that took place. So fast forward to January 6th, when elements of white extremist parties attempted to overthrow the duly elected government of the United States. The Trump administration was still in power at the time. How does that even make any sense? Dick Kupke mentioned that on his show, Trigger Talk, today. This was the insurrection where the Capitol Police held the doors open for the rioters and invited them in, admonishing them to continue peacefully. So now we have an administration that surrounds itself by barbed wire and armed troops, that insists that the greatest threat to the republic is white extremists. And basically anybody who's white is a racist. And so by extension, anybody who's white is a white extremist, because that's what racists are. This administration is seeking and imprisoning people who were even tangentially involved or merely present in certain places in D.C. on January 6th. The military is being cleansed and emasculated. You've seen this on the news. You know, you get the chief of staff who's talking about training the troops in their white fragility. Now Biden's threatening the people of this country with his control of F-15s and nuclear weapons.
Own them. And I might add, the Second Amendment from the day it was passed limited the type of people who could own a gun and what type of weapon you could own. You couldn't buy a cannon. Those who say the blood of patriots, you know, and all the stuff about how we're going to have to move against the government.
You know, the thing.
Well, the tree of liberty is not water with the blood of patriots. What's happened is that there never been, if you want to think you need to have weapons to take on the government, you need F-15s and maybe some nuclear weapons.
How is this guy even president of the United States? He can't even remember simple quotes and get them straight. I don't think he's ever quoted a founding father correctly yet. You know, the thing. And like I said, Dick Kupke was talking about this earlier on the show today about, you know, weapons and, you know, their availability to the American public. Well, quite frankly, until 1936, I think, Federal Firearms Act, or I think it was I think it was 36, you could own automatic weapons. One of my favorite scenes is in The Highwayman, where Kevin Costner goes in the hardware store and buys automatic weapons, and I'll take all of them, okay? And Americans had cannon. They had them on their ships to repel pirates, all right? So this is interesting. Pay careful attention. The Google summary of the Shakespeare play, the tragedy Macbeth, says, quote, encouraged by his wife, and I insert Jill. So encouraged by his wife, Jill, Macbeth kills the king, becomes the new king, and kills more people out of paranoia. Civil war erupts to overthrow Macbeth, resulting in more death. That's their summary. I contend we are in a civil war. It has started. Be not deceived. Your government is opposed to you, and it is afraid of you. Be worthy of that respect. Make a plan to take a stand. Where are you going to draw the line? A government that was supposedly elected by the huge turnout for Biden shouldn't feel so threatened by the populace. They know how they got the power. They knew they did it wrong, and it's bothering them because they know they don't have the support of the populace. Our government's moving against us, trying to remove our civil liberties, dividing us along racial and cultural lines. This is a serious charge, but I can't come to any other conclusion. Tell me anything this administration has done for this country. States in the South are banding together for the defense of the border that the federal government refuses to do. You don't think that echoes the past? States in the South banding together because the federal government? This can't end well on its current course. Joining me today, and you'll be happy to know I'm done talking now. Joining me today is Staff Sergeant Matt Briggs, statistician to the stars, co-author of The Price of Panic, How the Tyranny of Experts Turned a Pandemic into a Catastrophe. Matt has a PhD in statistics from Cornell University. He's the author of Uncertainty, the Soul of Modeling Probability and Statistics, and is the author or co-author of over 100 scientific papers. Matt's a smart guy. I asked him to join us because of that. Check out his blog at wmbriggs.com. It's very important, informative reading, okay? And I just want to tell you, if you want to join the discussion once it's begun, then, well, that's wrong. Wrong recording. Sorry about that. That's supposed to be the number to call is 734-822-1600. Derek, that didn't work very well for me, did it? All right. Matt, how are you?
Good, Ed. Good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no, thank you for joining us. You're always a font of wisdom, and I enjoy reading your blog so much. I trust other people who are listening are either reading it or will read it. There's so much information there, especially on Sundays when you talk about the religious aspects. So
I can't believe anybody's not reading it yet.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, did I mention you're the statistician to the stars? I like that.
If you haven't, you should keep repeating it so that everybody knows.
What's your Twitter address?
Famed celebrity.
Yeah, there. No lack of humility there. So,
well, listen, this is a culture that worships celebrity, and so the only way to get your views recognized is to become one. So I declared myself one. Therefore, anything I say is true by definition.
You self-identify as a celebrity. I wish
Exactly.
I'd thought of that. Yeah. So, what do you think about what I had to say there? Usually I have some guests on, I'll say the views and opinions of Ed Bonderenka are not necessarily the views and opinions of his guests. Do you want to distance yourself?
Distance myself? No, I don't want to distance myself. There's no point in distancing. It doesn't matter what you say or do anymore. That the people in charge are going to say whatever they want about you, and that has to be believed. So it doesn't make any difference whether I distance myself or not. It's clearly true, though, that we are no longer living in a republic, and that whoever the people are in charge are somewhat opaque to us. It's clearly not Biden. The man is senile at best, and whoever's feeding him his life isn't quite up to the job either. But somebody's in charge. Is it the deep state? Is it the oligarchs? Is it who? We don't quite know. But that they've grabbed power. That much is obvious. I mean, it's clear that the old ways are gone. They're not coming back. At least not at a national level. And our only real hope lies in what we could do locally. So everybody has to look out for their own locally, and that's the only way we can come out of this thing, I think.
Did you ever read the blog Sipsey Street Irregulars?
No, I haven't.
There's a quote from a guy there, Mike Vanderbeg, and it's an interesting quote. It goes, "This is no small thing, to restore a republic after it has fallen into corruption. I have studied history for years, and I cannot recall it ever happening. It may be that our task is impossible. Yet if we do not try, then how will we know it can't be done? And if we do not try, it most certainly won't be done. The Founders' Republic and the larger war for Western civilization will be lost. But I tell you this, we will not go gently into that bloody collectivist good night. Indeed, we will make with our defiance such a sound as all history from that day forward will be forced to note, even if they despise us in the writing of it." I like the sound of that,
Of course, we have to fight, but you have to do it wisely. They have all the power, they have all the means, they have infinite resources compared to any of us. And it's true. A republic has never been restored. The classical, since Aristotle, the idea that we move from a republic or a monarchy into an oligarchy, which by all indications we're in now, and that always dissolves into a democracy, which is more or less rule of the mob, where truth is defined as majority vote and all this kind of thing. And from there, back into some sort of strong man. We can only pray that this strong man that's to come is not a bloody leftist, that we move towards some sort of leftist singularity where the blood flows freely, and that we move towards something saner. But you have to organize on a local level. You have to look out for your own. You have to look out for your family. You have to look out for your neighborhood. Trying to organize anything at the national level at this point is really going to be fruitless. There's no way to overcome the advantages that they have, not easily. Voting, as we all saw in this last election, they called it fortifying the election. I guess that was the term they were boasting of. Well, they can go on doing that even stronger now that they have complete control of all of the parties and the government systems. So, we're not going to vote our way out of this. That's just apparent. Not at the national level, but things can always be done in your own neighborhood. The amount of energy that we should be putting forth should, in fact, just be locally. And what people can do that way is much stronger than what I think we can do nationally anymore.
I think we're seeing a turn to that. We're seeing people starting to pay attention to their local school boards. We've seen these videos of the viral videos of people standing up and challenging school board members, even being taken away by the police because they refuse to sit down and shut up. And that's one element of that. Another is
this could absolutely be done. The school boards, see, all these people now, they all have sights on higher offices and things like this. They don't see themselves as being members of the community or trying to do things for their own kids, for your kids, for their kids. They see themselves as part of this greater functioning entity that's taken us over. And so, yes, you absolutely can easily take over a school board and, expunge this nonsense of critical race theory and all the other things that they're pushing down, the global homo type ideas that they're pushing down students' throats. That can easily be done. I mean, not necessarily easily, but it can be done. If people were to band together and do this, they don't have to settle for the stuff that's been imposed upon us. So yes, follow these examples. That's a great place to start, is with school boards and things like this, because what is clear, what is obvious, is that the propaganda that they're pushing through in schools, it works. It clearly works. It's not like they're doing it for a reason. So I just saw some teachers and things complaining about the sexual theory that they're teaching now in schools. This one teacher said she had like 118 students, and I think 30% of them, all girls, are now questioning, they've changed all their pronouns, and several are discussing surgery to transition because of the mandatory lessons that they've been forced to teach these kids. And then you get some zealot teacher in there who is convinced of all this kind of gender theory thing. And so we have these poor kids subjected to this, and they're falling prey to it, and they act on it because this propaganda works. And the only way to get that out of there, you can homeschool, but that's not an option for most people. It's too difficult to do for money reasons alone. So you have to somehow take over your local school boards, and then you have to take over your state school boards, because a lot of this stuff is mandated from on high. So it's a big uphill fight, but it can be won in small pockets, but not perhaps overall.
I'd like to point out that this is to some degree, to a large degree, I believe, a spiritual battle for the soul of this country. I don't want to come off as a religious zealot so that I'm discounted. And yet, darn, I am a religious zealot. I am a born-again Christian. I am a believer in Jesus Christ. I read the Bible, and I know that we battle not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities of the air. That there are powers in high places. There's influences, and I honestly believe demonic influences to some degree, that are motivating a side that has turned its heart from God and godly principles. When you turn your heart from God and godly principles, then you've got a vacuum that's got to be filled with something, and that something is going to be ungodly values and principles. And I think that's what we're having. And so I'm thinking part of our battle needs to be on our knees to actually pray for deliverance, like we did at the opening of the show.
You're absolutely right. Of course, I agree with all that too. But this is clearly a spiritual crisis that we're going through. I mean, what we have are people who have adopted a completely different meaning of life. And that's, it's been building upon us. I mean, think about what Kennedy very famously said, the ex-justice of the Supreme Court, Anthony Kennedy, who said very many times, or at least in a couple of opinions, he said, at the heart of liberty is the right to define one's concept of existence, of meaning, of the universe, of the mystery of human life. And this is just rank relativism, and it's worse than that. It's the reason we have all this transgender mania and everything upon us is that people believe that they can change reality with a word, with their will. Their will defines what reality is, and you have to agree with their will. Otherwise, you're the bigot. So we have everybody saying, well, women are the equal of men. In fact, there's no differences between women and men. And the reason they do that is because of equality, Yes.
We're running out of time in this segment. Let's hold that thought, okay? We've got about 5 seconds left. Folks, join us with Matt Briggs when we come back. We'll take your calls. Hey there. Thanks for coming back and joining us again at Your American Heritage. So once again, we're talking today with, I say, Staff Sergeant Matt Briggs, because I asked Matt what the honorific he most appreciated in his life having others, and he said it was being a Staff Sergeant in U.S. Air Force, and I agreed with them. That's quite an honor. So, Matt, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So would you like to continue the thought before the music so rudely interrupted you?
No, I was just agreeing with you that the crisis that we're in is clearly a spiritual crisis. It's two groups of people with different worldviews, entirely different worldviews of what it means to be, for the greater good. What does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to be a human? What is reality really like? And one group is out there, like us, who are Christians, and try, and understand our place in the world, understand that it's a fallen world, understand the limitations, understand the restrictions and strictures of reality. The other side clearly believes that they're in complete charge and can command reality itself. This is the way a man could say, oh, today I'm a man and tomorrow I'm a woman. There's no other way that this could happen. This is how the idea of equality can reign, that there's no real differences between people or groups of people. But actually, equality is true. And it's true because they believe reality can be remade in their image. We've become, in a sense, like gods, believing that we could remake the way the universe is just with our words, just with our will. And that's the real battle, the spiritual battle we fight. And it's a real one. It's a difficult one to overcome. This is the whole thing. We've been saturated in this kind of thinking for a very long time. And to get out of it is really quite an extraordinary thing. And I'm not sure we can, not easily, or not in any time soon.
Nothing worth is always easy. So, in fact, we've got a case of where God made man in his own image, and now man is trying to make God in his own image. And, of course, they like to say follow the science as if science, the science is settled. And that so much reminds me of that, and I say movie because I didn't really read the book, Things to Come, with one of my favorite actors, Raymond Massey, as the bad guy, the dictator who takes over the world of science and administered through science and administration, all the administrative state. No more is there even the vestiges of a democracy. It's all the experts ruling us because of the science. And yet the administrative state we have has this made-up pseudoscience, like you're saying, you get to choose what gender you are, what sex you are. I remember when gender was a linguistic term to define a biological term.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The problem with science is the science. They always call it the science. That's when you're dealing with a idolater or the idea of scientism, as if science can hold the answers to all our questions. And it cannot. That that a certain thing is happening, for instance, like this virus that was spreading around or something, does not mean you know what to do about it. So that science doesn't give you the answer about what's right or wrong to do about any question. Science is completely mute on all questions of morality, absolutely every one of them. There's nothing that science could ever say to answer any of these questions. What's the best economic thing to do? What's the best spiritual thing to do? What's the best health thing to do? Science cannot answer those questions. They're just beyond the purview of science. So when you hear people saying, you have to follow the science, you have to believe the science, what they have in mind is some solution, some plan, some decision that they want to make, that they want to find an excuse for. And they believe science is this grand entity that cannot be questioned. And so you have these experts ready to take this up because it puts them in the position of like a modern priesthood, an unquestionable priesthood that once you get entry into, you cannot question. So this is why we have words like the consensus, and when people don't believe a consensus of scientists, they're called deniers. It's a form of religion with the object of worship being themselves again. So it's all part of that same mindset.
I just remembered that the name of your book, which I believe is in print again, right? It's available again. The Price of Panic: How the Tyranny of Experts, which is exactly what we're talking about. The tyranny of experts turned a pandemic into a catastrophe. We have a couple of callers, and one of them is Gary from Tucson, Arizona, formerly of Hazel Park. And just so everybody knows who we're talking about. So Gary from Tucson, Arizona has a comment. And Gary, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, how you doing, brother? Hey, Sergeant Major, I really like the clarity
Staff
of your
Sergeant.
mind.
Don't give him a promotion. Staff Sergeant.
Okay. my bad, Staff Sergeant. One of the things you were saying is that the Republic is in shatters and on the floor, and it's up to us to gather it up and rebuild it. Part of that was this dividing everybody. Well, right now what they're doing, and it's apparently obvious, is they're trying to divide the black race against the white race. Because now, as of just a couple weeks ago, the black race has their own Juneteenth, which they can celebrate as their Liberation Day. They have their own national anthem, apparently, something about raise your voice or something. They have their own graduations, their own dorms. They have autonomous zones in cities where you can't go. They have their own history called the 1619 Project. So they've got their own culture, and if you try to use any of it or appropriate any of it, well, you're accused of appropriation of culture. So you can't even dip into their culture without getting criticized for it. So that is part of what you were saying, is how they're going to rip this country apart.
Gary,
they clearly want to separate. This is why you hear it. The DOA, the FBI, the military in themselves saying the biggest threat we have is from white supremacists, and whites are evil. Whites are the permanent oppressors. Blacks are the permanent oppressed. They can't do anything about it. They're always oppressed. The whites can't help themselves. They're always evil. We had, for instance, the paper that came out a week or two ago from the Journal of Psychoanalysis calling whiteness a disease that there is, unfortunately, he said, no cure for. And so the problem with it is that they recognize that the majority of whites who are not part of the elite were sort of on Trump's side, on the sort of reality-based side of things, and they're dead scared of this group. And so what they're trying to do is find anything they can do to separate this group out, to make it look like it's a boogeyman, to make it look like the people who are inside this group are perfectly evil creatures that you can't associate with, and so forth. So you're exactly right. They try to separate the races, and they're promoting blackness. It's abandoned as if blacks are a sacred race or something. It's beyond absurd, but it's purely political at base. They do not want the white right to realize that they can have the same kind of power, politically speaking, that all of the other races are allowed to have. They don't want people coming together in that way, because this would severely imperil their ability to rule and to hold on to power. So that's why they're painting this situation as if it was some dire thing. To say that white supremacists are the biggest threat to the nation is clearly absurd. It's absolutely asinine. There's no evidence whatsoever for it, except for that sort of evidence that they manufacture themselves. I was just looking on Twitter before we came online, so it's just coincidence that the caller asked about this. There was this person who came on. The FBI is very famous for doing this kind of stuff, saying, hey, I lost all my friends online. Do we have any people here on the right, the gripers, they call them, who are having group chats? Maybe we can chat about guns or something cool, like overthrowing the government. So they're trying to manufacture these supposed crimes that don't exist at all, except in the fevered imaginations of these FBI agents and the like. But it's quite obviously, like I say, a political move. So we need to reject all of that. Just absolutely reject all of it. Don't ever buy into any of it. And call people out for being what they are with this critical race theory. They're anti-white. They're racist themselves. They're just terrible, terrible people. And, we can't let them get away with it.
When Gary was talking, and I trust Gary's still on the line, when Gary was talking, he described a set of situations, different communities, no-go zones, racial segregation, the whole list. As he was reading it, I was once again reminded of the conditions that the Democrat Party imposed the last time they were in power. So many people feel that, the Democrats, the Civil Rights Party, they're the party of slavery. They're the party of Andrew Jackson. They're the party of the Trail of Tears. They're the party of the South in the Civil War. Come on, folks. They're the party of the Ku Klux Klan, the lynchings. They were the party of resisting the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which frankly I think might have been the right thing to do, but for the wrong reasons. And so, if the outcome of the 1619 Project is going to be a war on white people, I suggest, I'm working on a project myself. It's the 1911 Project. I think Dick Hupke would understand what I meant when I said that, maybe a number of other people when I say the 1911 Project, because I'm getting all my 1911s all in serviceable condition, So, Gary, did you have anything else before you left?
Yeah, the only thing I had is even the Democrat states with their sanctuary cities and states, those are also part of this Civil War because they're refusing to follow the basic, simple laws of the nation.
There you go. Good closing comment. Thanks for calling, Gary. I always appreciate hearing from you. And we've also got Joe from Wyandotte. Surprise, is calling. He's got a comment he's going to regale us with. Hi, Joe. What do you know?
Hey, guys. You're right about mentioning it's an issue of faith and spirituality and religion, and communists always want to be God. They want to replace God. They have to attack Christianity, which the left does now, because they want to be the God. They worship government. I've written on that extensively, and I'm glad you mentioned for the greater good. That's another one of the co-opted, twisted terms, as we've also discussed on this and other Saturday shows, like it takes a village. That's a good, solid Christian precept. It takes a mama, a papa, a grandma, a grandpa, aunts and uncles, godparents, sometimes even your neighbors to babysit the kids or to keep them in the line when they're getting in trouble in the neighborhood. It does not mean a ward of the state where the state owns your child. Same thing with for the greater good. They co-opt it. Our founders got it right. Promote the general welfare, not individual welfare checks. That promotes the individual's welfare, promote the general welfare, and capitalism over communism, because capitalism is the system that has raised more people from poor than any on the planet. And even Bono, the former ultra-leftist, when he got involved with George W. Bush to help people in Africa, now admits capitalism. It's the teach a man to fish argument, not give them a fish.
Yep. Well said, Joe. Well said.
Thank you,
Matt,
brothers. I love you both. Take care and God bless.
Thank you, Joe. Matt, any response to that?
Well, I think it's absolutely true. The communists, they don't just argue so much economics anymore, because I think that's a function of us being in an operative oligarchy. They have all the money. They're not really wanting to redistribute it to any of us in particular, except in vote buying schemes, that kind of thing. But that we're clearly ruled by experts. That much is very true. This was predicted long ago. The managerial state from Burnham and others So you can't argue against them. Why? How can you say as a parent you're raising your child and you want to raise him in a particular way, and an expert comes around and says, "Well, listen, I have a PhD from an Ivy League university, and I have done research, and I think the best way to raise your child is in a way completely opposite of what you want to do." Now, how can you argue with me? I am an expert, and you're not. You're just clearly some schlub who has a kid. So they can make that argument. And they do make that kind of argument, and they get in charge and in power and then create laws and rules and regulations, more rules and regulations, to give themselves power over everything. And that's what they kind of really want. They just want to have all the power that they can grab. And we've been very willing to give it to them for the most part through fear, that hoping these experts can save us and make our lives more comfortable. But the hardest thing is most of these experts are wrong about most things, but they can't learn that themselves. That's something we have to teach them. So that's the difficult part, especially when they do get to make all the rules and regulations that we have to abide by. Fighting back with reality, fighting back by showing the observations don't agree with their pronouncements, is really difficult because they don't listen to you. They believe in their theories, they believe in their ideas, they believe they have the right ways on everything, and that trumps reality. That accounts for all the stuff we're seeing, from the transgender, from equality, from everything. The response to the corona doom, all of that stuff. But they're trying to get away with, again, with global warming, everything. So it's a very difficult time we're in, and like I say, getting out of it, I'm not certain we can get out of it, and I'm pretty sure maybe we can't, except what we can do for ourselves. Again, I keep hammering that point home because I think it's crucial that we might not all get out of this, but perhaps some of us can save ourselves.
There's a verse. It's something with God, with man, these things are not possible. With God, all things are possible. I butchered that, but it's pretty much, if we have God on our side, and if we're on God's side, which is more important, then these things are possible. I want to read a text from Jay Poplar from Florida sent. He says, exactly, these gods are so envious of their creator, they are willing to kill off his children. He won't let us create life, but he lets us take it, so we will. Bitterness runs through their veins, and their spite is huge. So there's that from Jay Poplar. And we also have on the phone Walter from Ypsilanti, and he has a comment about spiritual battles. And I just want to let everybody know we have about 6.5 minutes left of the show, so pace yourself. Walter, how you doing, buddy?
That's right. You had to remind me. I'm long-winded, right? No, I'm kidding. Hey, let me get to the point. You guys are right on target about this being a spiritual battle. Let me separate the two. Okay, in this world, there's heaven, hell, God, the devil. Democrats, Republicans, vice versa. The Democrats' agenda is definitely spiritual. Straight, it was birthed out of the pits of hell. Republicans' agenda was birthed out of the corridors of heaven. God, Jesus, and the heavenly host. But let me say this about this racism crap. Take the trip down memory lane. It started with Barack Hussein Osama, Ali, Rashid, Rahid, Sam Obama, known as Barack Obama. And that's coming from a black guy, if you guys didn't know.
What, are you black? Darn, I keep forgetting that.
I said it, I meant it, and that settles it. And guess what? I'm just as outraged about this nonsense as you guys are. In fact, I have surpassed some white people with my outrage against this racial stuff that's going on in this country, started by them dirty, hell-bound Democrat politicians. Like I said, let's not forget Barack Obama started all this stuff because we were getting along quite well with the racists when George Bush was in office. You can give George Bush a little credit on that one. So I talk to a lot of whites that said that Barack Obama took us back to the civil rights movement. And you can tell that even in his inauguration. It was the ghost of civil rights passed in Barack Obama's inauguration. But let me throw something real quick. Be aware of this so-called Delta variant fraud. And remember, the Democrats know how to get a head start on their evil. They're getting a head start to the midterms election. They're probably going to try to use this Delta variant to shut us down again, control our lives again, so they can steal the midterm election. And I said it, I meant it, and that settled it.
All right. Thanks, Walter. I appreciate that. And you're absolutely right. As usual. Boy, I keep forgetting he's black. Darn. So, let's see. Now, we also have a comment from Tom from Detroit. So Tom's going to make a comment. We have 4 minutes left. I'd like to have a little time left for Matt to respond. Hi, Tom.
Hi. I just wanted to pass on. I was listening to Alex, and he passed on that General Flynn is predicting that. He said this Arizona audit, it's really a big deal. The evidence is there, and this is what he says there's going to be some kind of false flag. Alex expounded. He thinks the operation is going to go something like a black church up or something like that. Plenty of shell casings on the ground, what have you. Plenty of blood, and this is going to be needed by the Democrats to knock it off the front page. They want to totally, subvert all the news, and with the friendly media. I mean, I guess the more people are watching and know about it, the less likely it's going to happen. Alex said if he was a member of a black church, he would make sure that he was packing heat and watching real close what was going on. And I'll let you get on with Matt. Thanks for taking my call.
Appreciate it. And that's Alex Jones, and a friend of mine sent me that video last night. I'm not a big Alex Jones fan, but hey, he gets it right sometimes. And imagine martial law declared because of a black flag or incident. Matt, you got any comments? We have about a minute and a half left.
Sure. Yeah, so I'll give you 2 comments. For one thing, all these audits are going on. The voting audits are going on. There is no way they will relinquish power. How they will hold on to it, that we could speculate about. But no matter what the outcome of these audits are, they will not relinquish power. So I would imagine the most likely scenario being they would discredit the audits in some way or another. That's my prediction. About the Delta variant, that's absolutely, positively true. They're starting to flip out about the Delta variant now, both in England and other countries and the United States even with some of these epidemiologists. So experts have all pretended to forget what they knew about viruses. This virus, the coronavirus virus, has mutated like they all do, and they usually become less deadly, but perhaps more transmissible. That's what happens with this Delta variant, apparently. So for right now, the evidence I've seen is that it's about 10 times less deadly. 10 times, that's a huge number, but it's a little bit more infectious. But so all you got to do is look at the actual numbers of deaths being ascribed to the coronavirus, and they're just drop. They drop in England, they're dropping everywhere. But yes, some of them are this new Delta, the thing. But they are absolutely going to try to use this. We will see a surge in the in the fall, as we always do. Once we have a bug like this in the system circulating, it's never going to go away forever. But will
Matt,
they try to use it to gain more power? Yes.
All right. Thanks for joining us today, Matt. It's always a pleasure. Folks, thanks for joining us today. It's always a pleasure. And stay tuned for a moment of clarity. This has been Your American Heritage. See you next week. Thanks.